Salofalava, this is Pacific Waves from RNZ Pacific. I'm Susanna Suisuiki. Coming up,
Vanuatu support independence of Melanesian countries.
Vanuatu's Prime Minister wraps up his visit to Aotearoa. Also,
who never give us any money, don't help us, who complain quite a lot, but do nothing.
Samoa's former Prime Minister responds to Samoa rugby critics. And
in each one of them, their findings were findings of no significant impact.
Guam landowners raise concerns over the US's missile testing plans. But first up, some breaking news. RNZ Pacific can confirm French President Emmanuel Macron has approved a high-level Pacific mission to New Caledonia. The French ambassador to the Pacific, Veronique Roger-Lacan, told Lydia Lewis in an exclusive interview that France is welcoming a mission of the Troika before the Pacific Islands Forum leaders meeting in the last week of this month.
So I gave a letter to Secretary General Baron Waka and Prime Minister Brown, the chair in office. And it's a letter that I signed, that President Macron asked me to sign on his behalf, mentioning that it's a good idea, it's important, but everyone can assess the situation together with us, and that our dialogue with the people is very important. We repeats the fact that these riots were conducted by a handful of people who contest democratic, transparent and fair processes, and that the French state has restored security and is rebuilding and organizing the reconstruction, and that we are welcoming a mission of the Troika for a fact-finding mission in New Caledonia before the summit.
And what was the reaction of Baron Wanga?
The reaction of joint cooperation and willingness to call for an end of violence and resumption and call for support for the dialogue.
And was there any conversation as to when the mission will take place?
Yes, it will be before the summit. So there we have to discuss together.
The chair of the Melanesian Spearhead Group and Vanuatu Prime Minister backs independence for New Caledonia through a democratic process. It's been almost 3 months since violence broke out in the French territory, killing 10 people. Charles Salwai told RNZ Pacific he has supported independence of Melanesian countries for a long time. Lydia Lewis has more.
Vanuatu Prime Minister Charles Salwai remains a staunch supporter of independence for all Melanesian nations. That includes New Caledonia.
We are also, for a long time, to support independence of Melanesian countries. So we were not going to interfere in politics in New Caledonia, in France, but politically and morally we support the independence of New Caledonia. Of course, has to go through a democratic process like referendum. We are the one to decide.
He's wrapped up his tour of New Zealand, talked RSE workers with the Prime Minister Christopher Luxon.
We need to discuss it, not with New Zealand, but internally in Vanuatu. See, Vanuatu is a small population, only about 300,000 people. And when we double, it will also affect the labor in Vanuatu. But on the other hand, it's bringing a lot of remittance and assisting many families.
Mr. Salwai travelled to the South Island to meet with the workers themselves, and he visited a medicinal cannabis farm.
Very interesting to go and talk to people that know about marijuana.
Vanuatu is looking to medicinal cannabis growers in Aotearoa for advice on how to roll out its own legislation.
It can grow easily in Vanuatu. The wild one grows everywhere. In the villages it grows easily. But we don't want to grow the wrong one because it's against the legislations. But this one, we welcome. That's why we have legislation about it.
It's taken a while to kick the 2018 legislation into motion, but after his visit, Prime Minister Salwai is optimistic things will get moving. When asked about how the recovery effort is going 1 year on from twin cyclone disaster Judy and Kevin, he says the archipelago is still building back. But one thing he says can't be replaced is the land. Prime Minister Salwai says waves generated by the cyclones and sea level rise has destroyed beaches across Vanuatu.
I'm afraid that we lose all the beauties of our islands, but our kids or children for tomorrow won't see it. Maybe we'll see it in the picture, but not in reality.
He's flown directly to Fiji for the Forum Foreign Ministers meeting. It's the last big talanoa before Pacific leaders meet in Tonga for their annual summit to make some big decisions on climate financing and their possible role in supporting peace in New Caledonia.
The chairman of Lakapi Samoa, Tuilai Pasailele Malilingaui, says 2024 was about improving the rugby union's financial situation. Last month, Samoa Rugby wrote to World Rugby, informing that the Manu Samoa team will not be able to go ahead with a Northern Hemisphere tour due to significant financial challenges and to avoid going bankrupt. Tuileipa spoke with Grace Fiava'ai.
The former Samoa Prime Minister says while the union faces financial challenges, this year is focused on enticing sponsors.
We had talked again to other sponsors as well as donations from the 100 years celebration.
When asked whether or not he'd consider resigning due to criticisms of current management, Tuileipa says talk is cheap.
We receive much criticism from the people who never give us any money, nor help us, who complain quite a lot, but do nothing.
Tuileipa says Samoa's former government invested a lot into Manu Samoa and says the current government needs to do the same.
Manu Samoa needed a lot of financial support, which has been cut by the present government.
A spokesperson for World Rugby says they are in active dialogue with Lakapi Samoa and its stakeholders to determine possible solutions to ongoing financial challenges and to foster a strategy of long-term stability.
And an update, it's being reported that Lakapi Samoa are now planning to raise funds to help send Manu Samoa to Europe for the November Rugby Window International Tests. World Rugby has declined to comment. The soaring cost of living and signs the government struggling to meet its obligations are dominant discussion points going into next Wednesday's first poll in Kiribati. Wednesday's ballot will be followed by a second round on Monday and the following week, after which nominations for president will be made. Kiribati journalist Rimon, who is RNZ Pacific's correspondent, told Don Wiseman in recent days there are concerns over IDs for voters at the polling stations.
Look, there's been quite a rush to get things sorted out right before the elections. One of the issues that we're facing now is that a lot of people on the ground are finding that the government, or perhaps a certain government institution, is quite strict on identification. So there's been an issue in the lead up to the polling day. And there's been what you call this registration of voters. And there's been quite a mix up of requirements of whether you can bring your license or your passport or the national ID card. Now, the government or the agency that is responsible for this is saying that on polling day, they will be strict on just national ID cards. Now, the problem is, and some of the people are lashing this out, expressing themselves on social media, saying a lot of people don't have national ID cards because the national ID card office is running beyond capacity to cater for the people's needs. So a lot of people don't have cards or are in the process of renewing their cards and are quite worried that they might not get the chance to cast a vote on that. I'm still keeping an eye on that, but otherwise candidates are really pumped up during their final rounds of putting up papers and flyers around the town, in front of stores and public places for people, and just I think the last push for support for what they're running for.
Well, campaigning, I think, has been going on in some cases anyway for months, hasn't it? Has it become more intense?
It's become more intense. Indeed, it has. I think a lot of people, especially I'm seeing some of the incumbent candidates or the candidates seeking re-election really going out. And I haven't witnessed, to be fair, any of those campaigning because usually they are done within community houses called maniapas, which are sort of like a traditional, it's like the marae, I think, in New Zealand. And so a lot of people are saying that they're seeing some of the candidates giving out kava, which is quite a popular popular commodity here, even though the time for giving out things have already stopped according to the laws.
Does anyone police that?
Well, the commission is supposed to be looking about this, and of course we have the community as a police, and people usually report that. And so we're seeing a lot of this. What we're seeing is that people are giving away cover, not the candidates, but some people tend to know that person giving out the cover belongs to a certain candidate or is a supporter of that particular candidate. Who is monitoring all of this? I think that's a very good question to look into. I think that the Elections Commission under the Ministry of Culture is really responsible about this. And it's not just about police's, patrolling the community as if they were looking for crime or mischievous activities. I don't think it works that way. I think it works on a community level where people who continue to experience that will report that to the appropriate authorities. And we've had that kind of cases in the past elections where certain people reported candidates are giving away money more than $20. So according to the Constitution, you cannot give away $20. And we had this incident where a lady put herself on camera and put it out on social media that a certain candidate gave her more than $100. And I think that went to court at that time. This time round, I'm hearing of some stories of, communities continuing to enjoy drinking and discussing over a cover about who and what to vote, and at the cost of the cover being provided by a several candidate. Now, I haven't really gone to verify whether this cover was actually belonging to a certain candidate running, but certainly there were free covers going around because a lot of people in the communities are still actually drinking cover. And cover has been a commodity used by candidates to really get people around to sit around and talk about ideas that they want to share.
In terms of ideas, you and I last time talked about the various benefits that the current government has been instrumental in organising: the old age pension, the unemployment benefit, and the grant or the subsidy for copra growers. Is there any more discussion along those lines?
These have been sort of like the flagship policies that really define the governments or the ruling parties' rule over the last 4 years. And so while I think the main ideas now are that, especially what I'm hearing here in Capital, is that because the prices of living is not really conducive. Certain items in shops, the prices have gone really astronomical, right? And so those are the kind of issues that the people are looking for in their candidates. Another issue is that medical healthcare has been quite in decline in the last 4 years. Really essential medicine like Panadol or paracetamol for kids are always in short supply every now and then. And these are the kind of things that when I dig in my local reporting, we found out that there are government, outstanding with overseas suppliers. And that gives us the idea why that government is in some kind of cash flow trouble. And to see policies like the unemployment and the corporate subsidy, which constitute quite a big chunk of, I think, in the tens of millions, as in handouts to the people, I think this gives an idea for people saying that, look, we're facing a lot of the overall public service delivery needs to be improved. And some much are now coming to realize that those social benefits that have been in place could perhaps be a cause to this problem that exists here. So these are the kind of things that now people are trying to choose between because they appreciate these social welfare benefits. It's why they voted this government back into a second term in the first place. But they also want an improvement of just the general well-being in like the public service delivery and the healthcare and things like that.
While the governor of Guam has defended the use of nuclear weapons and long-range missiles in the territory, affected landowners are expressing concerns. Tom Ada, a military veteran, says he and other landowners are worried about the impact the proposed missile testing can have on their livelihoods. Mr. Ada told Alicia Foon about their concerns.
The concern that I have with the missile test, and I made it very clear in the letter that I had written and I had sent to Admiral Hoffman, is that, I fully support what their objective in testing the missile systems that they have on island. But there was just so many inconsistencies in the report, I thought. And the responses that I got at that public forum that was held a couple of weeks ago there was just so many inconsistencies that I couldn't help but get suspicious about, what's really going on here.
What were some of those consistencies?
So, one of I think the most glaring inconsistencies in the report, they looked at various items, what the impact might be on marine life, what the impact might be on, wildlife and whatnot, and what the impact might be on public health and public safety. And in each one of them, their findings were findings of no significant impact. But then they used this phrase, out of an abundance of caution, we're going to ask the private property owners, we want to restrict access to those private properties in Hinapsa, and we'll also offer compensation to the landowners, for the inconvenience of having to move out during that period of testing. Again, you can't have it both ways. You can't say there's no significant impact, but on the other hand, we're going to ask the landowners. Now, so what are you going to do if the landowner decides, no, I'm not going to move? Take me to court to evict me from my own land. And the response is, well, we're going to ask the landowners to sign a waiver of liability. Why should I assume liability for, whatever error that may be made in this missile testing activity? So it raises suspicion on my part as to really what is all going on here, because things just aren't adding up.
The MDA told me that they've actually now backpedaled. They've said that the land that the debris may fall on is in a camping site area and no one actually lives there. And he said, out of the abundance of caution, to be extra cautious, we sent 250 letters out to homeowners or landowners. But I understand that at least half bounced back or came back to them, and there were a number of letters that were sent to deceased landowners as well.
Exactly.
Do you see that as an out-of-touch approach? I mean, when it comes to the United States military and relationships with landowners, and particularly Chamorro and Indigenous people in Guam, what is that relationship like, and why aren't we seeing more unity when it comes to standing up for land rights?
Well, first of all, the relationship between the Air Force, whose land the private property landowners have to go through, and the private property owners have been very good in the past years. What puzzles me is this people that they're doing the study. They don't have current data as to who the landowners are, and they could have just gone to the Air Force Real Property Office, which has data that is within 1 year of currency, because every year we have to go in and renew our passes, right? There seems to be that big disconnect between the missile people and the Air Force, and so I think it's starting to put a bad taste in. For me especially, I mean, that says a lot. I'm retired military. I'm very pro-military. The word that sticks in my mind is such a cavalier attitude, and that doesn't make for good relations. It's just the fact that you're going to restrict, you're going to take away my right to be able to go down and visit my property. I may decide to go down there on a middle of the week, but why are you going to basically restrict when I can go down there or not?
Can you say no to the military? Can the people of Guam and the governor say no to the military?
I don't know that we have that kind of a leverage. I guess the tone of my letter, for example, instead of saying, no, we don't want you to do that missile testing and whatnot, it's like, you can do it, but, kind of, let's see, we can't find a middle ground here. Tell us when you're going to do it, and based on your findings, that the risks are pretty low of, casualty occurring as a result of that activity, let us decide if we're going to take that risk or not. There's always that middle ground to something. I think, we should have more say in what the military does out here.
That's Pacific Waves for today. To listen back, head over to rnz.co.nz/Pacific. We're also on Spotify, Apple and iHeartRadio. From myself and the RNZ Pacific team, Tōwha Soifua.